Okay, so everyone, you're all very welcome to this morning's webinar. You all know me, Orla, and delighted to be joined here by Paul Walsh from All Things Amazon. Paul reached out to us a couple of months ago, and it was very interesting and probably very, very relevant now with the announcement of Amazon.ie launching next year. It's an interesting topic as well, something that we've always thought about. It's an opportunity for retailers to drive an extra channel of revenue into their business. So I think it's relevant that we discuss this and look at the opportunities, and that's what Paul's going to talk to us about today. And I suppose from this session, we'd be keen to get your feelings on your feedback, any of you who might be engaging on the channel already that maybe we're not aware of, and I suppose your appetite maybe to engage in it moving forward. So it would be great to get a feel for that. As I said, I'm going to hand over to Paul, who's going to do the presentation for you here today. We're going to allow some time for questions at the end. So we might just, if you have a question during the presentation, feel free to pop it into the chat. And if not, we'll open the floor at the end of the presentation. We'll get everyone to unmute, and we might just have an informal chat and bounce around some ideas around it. So yeah, I think that's it for now. So we'll pop over and we'll make Paul host, and we'll let Paul get started with his presentation. Thanks, Paul.
Super. Thanks for the intro there. Can everybody see that?
Yeah.
Good. Okay, perfect. I've admitted two more people there as well, so we'll give it a couple of seconds for them to come through. Good morning to everybody. I'm in London today, which seems a bit strange doing this away from home. I'm based in just between Uri and Armagh, in the middle of the rural countryside, which is the best place for e-commerce in my eyes. And I've lived there for 7 years. And what we are working to deliver to you today is some guidance and some answers as to how you can bring your e-commerce strategy and start to look at Amazon. Now, as Orla mentioned, this has got much more relevant in the past sort of 3-4 weeks, because what we have going on is Amazon have announced Amazon.ie, and what we have there is the chance for Irish companies to start progressing in their Amazon development. So we've a lot there to look at, and what we're going to address today, because the details of Amazon.ie aren't quite known yet, what we're going to address today is ultimately, should I sell on Amazon? And that's the question that some of you are probably asking, and how to build that into your e-commerce strategy. Can you see this pane at the bottom of the screen? Do I need to remove that, or can you not see that? Orla, Ursula?
Yeah, no, I don't see any pane, just see your slide.
Right.
So
that's fine. It's just with all the attendees, I wanted to make sure I wasn't blocking the screen. Okay.
Sure. No, all good. No, all good.
Super, thanks. So where this starts is I've been running an Amazon agency. I hate the word agency, but that's what we are. For about 8 years. I've actually been doing this for 15 years, and we are all things Amazon.co.uk and all things Amazon.ie. We're based in the north, and we've got clients in the south and in the north, and in England as well, based on our spread. And Amazon is very open-ended, and we have revenue that we manage as part of our agency that is from US, UK, Europe, and further afield. So there's a world of opportunity there, as we all know, within e-commerce. And I have a family as well, and thankfully this life supports my family, and my family is able to be supportive of this life whenever it asks a bit more of me. And the big announcement came after we started talking about the opportunities about what's available on Amazon, and it has increased the relevance and probably increased a bit of opportunity in people's eyes and a bit of worry. And we're going to delve into some of the key questions about Amazon.ie before we then open up into Amazon overall. And I'll explain the reason why we need to look outside of Amazon.ie as we go forward. So Amazon have officially confirmed the launch of Amazon.ie in 2025. Some reports not confirmed have said that they're asking for stock around Halloween from some of the larger retailers. Now, I don't know if that's true, but I have heard that. and that leads us into the big question, which will the stock be held in FBA in Ireland? So FBA is fulfilled by Amazon, which is Amazon's warehousing opportunity function. And it is correct that yes, the stock can be sent into Dublin FBA from early 2025. There's more to come on that, and that is a part of the journey, but it's not all of it. You can hold the stock and ship it yourself, which is a great opportunity because then you're not having to worry about stock in someone else's warehouse. The other question that we've been asked so far is, will Amazon.ie automatically list my Amazon.co.uk products? So this is for people who are already on Amazon.co.uk and they're wondering how this will work. Amazon have a tool that is called the Build International Listings tool, I believe. I think it's BIL. And supposedly it's able to build listings in other countries, but we have found in most cases that's not true. It can only build it for a seller if it's built already. And what Amazon.ie is going to open with is not very many products already built because it's brand new. So there's a lot there. I wouldn't focus too much on that. You can build products on Amazon very easily, and that's what you should do because they're then better quality. And probably why I wanted to, move this outside of Amazon.ie is our opinion as an agency is for the first 5 years, Amazon.ie will move at a pace that, yes, is quick, but the larger revenue opportunities for Irish companies is probably within Amazon UK and perhaps further afield in Germany, France, and so on as well. Amazon is broken down country by country. For example, it's not a case of you're on the UK and you just click a button and Ireland is open or vice versa. You need to build your account. They're all within one linked dashboard, but you still have to build an account in each country. You have to build the listings in each country, the settings in each country. And I, from my point of view, would recommend you going into this in a way that considers country by country. I think your country focus should be Ireland as our home, as our domestic, as our hopefully what is eventually our centralized Amazon account in terms of revenue. But I would also consider UK from day number one. There's billions already transacted on Amazon.co.uk, and as much as the border and the sea and some of the logistics and some of the Brexit areas maybe start to confuse that, once you have those cracked, it's a huge revenue pot that is very, very, very accessible. And where we wanted to kind of open this is all about e-commerce structure. And most of the people joining us today are coming from a website-based retail experience, or perhaps they have stores and the website was an add-on. But D2C websites only occupy, in our eyes, 1/3 or one of the three institutional pieces of e-commerce. And the second one is your search engines and social position, and that's what you guys are all very aware of, that we're having to pay X amount of money a month to drive traffic. And that's where we grab customers whenever customers don't know us naturally. And the third one that people sometimes get mixed up and confused in with their D2C websites is this marketplaces opportunity. And marketplaces is a term that's overused. Marketplaces is by definition a website where there is multiple sellers. It's not one seller with multiple brands. It's one website with multiple sellers. And that's key because it's a much different approach. And as we go through the presentation today, we'll open up on why you have to think differently. And really, it's all about how your mindset matters in this game, because websites/D2C are this insular closed loop. Your website is your place. Your customer is your customer. If they're on your website, they may transfer to another of your products, and that's good. But whenever it comes to search engines and social, and Amazon as an open market, both of these two areas have the opportunity for your customer to go from your product onto a competitor's product. And you really have to think about that very differently, because that is revenue that, instead of moving amongst your products under your website, moves into a competitor. And what we've always wanted to do in the early days in Amazon discussions with clients is sort of hit the fake news head on. And the first one is, that Amazon's really costly. Amazon has from our experience, actually come in right in the middle of the market and has standardized costing. So we'll break down those costings in a minute, but Amazon has a fixed base cost, which is typically 15% of top line sales, include the top line, including your VAT. And Amazon take that 15%, and everything else you spend on Amazon is optional after that. That's basically the only cost there is. Whenever you sell a product for 100 euros, you're going to pay 15 euros, and that's it. Everything else is optional. The sort of the next one that comes up is your products on Amazon need to be the same as your website price, so your D2C or your retail price. That's not true whatsoever. Amazon try to enforce this, but they struggle to enforce it, and you can always, certainly in the early days, whenever you're selling on Amazon and it's a limited amount, you can still control both prices. And now that is Amazon. Whenever you're dealing with Amazon as a third party, there is an ability for you to supply to Amazon via vendor slash wholesale slash purchase orders and old school retail kind of way of doing things. In that case, they control the price, but we're not really delving into that today. We wouldn't recommend that step early on the journey because Amazon don't really want you to be engaging in that and won't support you until you're at about £1 million a year. So the next big fear factor is Amazon will copy your product. I think if Amazon's going to copy your product, you'll already be doing £10 million a year, 10 million euros a year on that product, which in our eyes will take a long time to get to. So that's a very, very future distant worry. Amazon have been criticized by the PR machines and the news magazines all over the world for this, but we have never seen it in a way that would threaten your business. FBA, or fulfillment by Amazon fees, is a big one from day one that people worry about. Uh, FBA fees are pretty competitive. Amazon hold the product and ship it, and your fee is basically 90% based around the shipping fee, which is in exchange for you shipping a product with DPD or AMPOST. And really, that's very comparable. Where you start to get into then other costs are storage, which I wouldn't worry too much about, and inbound, because if you manage your stock well enough with Amazon, you'll incur very, very small amounts of those fees because of good stock rotation. You're only penalized on heavy stock. And Amazon ads, this is the one that gets the most attention on it. Whenever you Google Amazon and how to win on Amazon, it's totally overused, and Amazon ads aren't needed for success. Success can come without them. And that's how we've built an agency. Ultimately, is we fly in the face of our competitors who will be suggesting to you to spend X% on ads. We would try and find the strategy and the way for you to do this with spending minimal on ads. Our client portfolio and ads, I'll break down what our ad percentage is in a minute, but it's much better than people say. And really, across over the years of doing presentations and across our business, the question that people eventually get to is what's under the bonnet, and what's the financial breakdown of Amazon. And this here is £198 million of managed Amazon revenue over 15 years. And we've broken it down in comparison to these companies' D2C revenue. And ultimately, your VAT, when you're working it back down from a UK point of view, is 1/6, 16.66%. It's 20% if you're working it up. So that comes off your 100%. Your shipping is about 14%. Your fees is about 15% here on Amazon, as I'd said before. Now, this is where it starts to really compare to your D2C, where you've a much less fixed cost basis in your D2C cost of sale or your fees. You've much more ad fees though with your D2C. You've perhaps 18 points there. On Amazon, our ad fees for our portfolio have been 3%. But what that works out is the big sort of answer here that we want to make very clear to people is it has resulted for us over the years in seeing a trading margin or a gross margin and effectively a net margin of almost comparable. And the reason for that is your costs are quite similar, your top line's quite similar. You just have two of them, which is mainly your fees and your ad fees that move around a little bit. But what this all relies on as well is you have a factory cost or a cost of the product, in other people's terms, of about 24, 26%, maybe up to 30, maybe up to 35% factory cost. And that is a thing that we run into where people start facing problems. If you don't have that level of margin, we're going to have to look at this very, very carefully and work out where the gap is, because these fees that come below that are nearly guaranteed in terms of your VAT, your shipping, etc. And you still have to have enough margin left to run a business. So we can come back into that a bit more, and we can talk about that from a financial element, but we want to use today to show as much as possible. And the only reason we have experience in Amazon is by failing so many times that we've eventually learned the lesson the hard way. And 198 million, when you manage that level of revenue, thankfully you learn that a few times, and you start to build experience from there. We didn't go on a course. We didn't do, a cheat book. None of this is made up. And we just lived it, and that's been, thankfully for me, what I've been doing for the past 15 years, and then the last 8 years as an agency. And we plan to stay within that marketplace focus. We don't do websites, we don't go near paid sort of media with Meta or with Google. We just focus on Amazon, and that's where we want to find the answers. So back to the mindset point, and we talk about algorithms a lot. Whenever you're selling on Amazon, the question you always want to know is what the algorithm will do. And it goes back to the mindset point. And the mindset point was that you have to think about this very differently from your D2C. And an algorithm is a process or a set of rules to be followed in calculations or other problem solving operations, especially by a computer. Effectively, Amazon's algorithm controls your life on Amazon, and you're controlled against or next to the many competitors that are there. So our focus goes on beating the algorithm, because that's what you need as a business, and that's what we do as an agency, as a service. So when you hear algorithm, we recommend thinking of momentum. And the e-commerce user experience, when you're talking about momentum, is broken into search and conversion, and it is a journey of two parts. They're very, very different, and you need to always have both in mind. Too often we are speaking to businesses who are making a decision completely based on conversion, whenever the search is the bigger part of the issue or question. And it came up recently when I was speaking to someone about a book, and um, I just quoted this from it for the sake of everybody today, and it's basically that this lack of appearance in search is the biggest barrier to your book sales, and it's a far bigger problem than the conversion, because the book's good, the feedback's good. The issue is the search is just not showing your book to enough people, and all of e-commerce in our experience is split into search versus conversion that control the spend of money, and search is usually the bigger problem. So why we're talking about the algorithm today, and its part in your Amazon journey, is you need to beat the algorithm to top the search. Because if you sell a mobile phone case, for example, on Amazon.co.uk, there's 90 million phone cases already there. How are you going to get ahead of that? And remember, the difference in that and your D2C website is you don't control where you appear in search. And the other difference is, if you don't get the sale, it goes to a competitor. And we broke this down, and I'm a big fan of real world examples. So the search for moisturizer women Clinique, that's a very, very common search. I think that's searched 40,000 times a month on Amazon. And the issue you run into is the very thing I searched for is not on the search results page. And that is the battle on Amazon. This is what I searched for, but that's not the thing that appeared. And a lot of our life is around getting ahead of that. So algorithms power what someone sees on any page when they search for a string of words, but there's a lot of lesser relevance due to this competitive, aggressive environment. And we have to navigate that. That is what we have to do on behalf of sellers. And that's what we kind of want to instill the importance of to everyone here, is how you're going to get around that in Amazon.ie and Amazon.co.uk. And the customer journey then comes back in, and the user experience of the customer, and they basically trickle from search. They look at the imagery, they make choices from there, they go into the listing details, and then they convert. But each step of that journey is different and requires a different thing. You may hate cramming a product title with search words, but the bigger barrier is normally that if you don't have enough words in your title, they'll never see your product to then make a decision on how good it is. And we got to get through that one first to bring in the conversion question. And the algorithm sits over all the other levers on Amazon. It sits over your videos, it sits over your A+ content, which is this kind of yellow image based visual in the middle. It sits over your imagery, and it sits over conversion. And people sometimes think that's a bit gray, but we break that down, and we want to give you answers to kind of inspire you as to what's possible here, and how we can approach it. And the algorithm itself is driven by account health, and account health on Amazon is a really important thing. So there's seller feedback, there's product feedback. You have an order defect rate, which is effectively a 1% limit, that if you have more orders than that, or sorry, more issues than the 1%, Amazon will add a amber flag to your account, and the amber can progress to red. If it progresses to red, you could be suspended from selling on Amazon as a whole for a couple of weeks. That there's very difficult to deal with, but you have to really think about the platform you're selling on. It's Amazon's rules on this place, it's not the seller's rules. So these order defect rates, these A to Z guarantee claims, these invoice defect rates, they control the algorithm and the account health. And a lot of people ask why. So we've added this in over the years, and the algorithm improves the customer selection at the top here. The customer sees improved selection and the customer makes a purchase. And that then feeds back to the algorithm, which improves the selection, and the flywheel continues. And the question is, why so many layers? And this here second sort of visual piece is actually an Amazon sketch from, I think it's 15 years old now. And this was their belief in you drive growth with this lower cost structure, which feeds lower prices. And that feeds the customer experience, that leads to sellers, which leads to selection and back to the customer experience. And this was all with growth in mind. So the algorithm's job with this kind of growth mindset is it's here to suggest likely items the customer is going to type, because in this one search bar exists 800 million items, and the algorithm has a lot of work to do. So the customer searches for an item, they're suggested things that Amazon think the customer is likely to click or search for, which lead customers down a road. And that road uses a search funnel, and the search funnel is probably very sort of easy for people to understand here, because we're all in the e-commerce game. And if you search red bag on Amazon.co.uk, there's 4 million results. If you search red leather bag and start to diversify with this with an extra word, which is leather in this case, drops to 0.5 million, and so on and so forth, until you get a 6-string word search, which is men's red leather laptop bag strap. And by the time you get here, you've whittled the 4 million or the 800 million down to 4, and the 4 down to what is 14,000 or so. And what you have done is the customer, has really zoomed in on what they want. That has reduced the search results, and that has increased the chance of you to sell that product to them, so long as you're still within the search results that are left. That's why the SEO, the search side, really matters. And the algorithm and how to beat it is a maths game. And I don't like living in a maths world. Me and my maths teacher didn't get on overly well. I enjoy it as in its simple form. I just don't enjoy the complex parts. But this bit's easy enough to follow. And the big thing here is there's points awarded effectively for everything you do on Amazon. And Amazon award that through the algorithm. And say, for example, there's two possible points for customer service, 2 for imagery and 2 for feedback. You have a total possible score of 8 because they're all multiplied together. So 2 by 2 by 2 is 8. That's it in simple format. Now, what's likely to be achieved is maybe 1.96 out of 2 as your customer service side, 1.8 for your imagery, 1.65 out of 2 for your feedback. When you multiply them together, you get 5.82 out of 8. Now, that sounds, to me, doesn't sound the best, but what you really have to think about is the competitors against that, and the competitors only score 4.7 out of 8. Therefore, you win as a part of this, and that's really the way to think about it. You don't have to be perfect, you just have to beat the competition, and that's what we try and engineer. However, we're going to complicate this here. The algorithm doesn't just measure 3 variables, it actually measures about 150 variables, and they are there are a number of things. I'm screenshotting this here just perhaps to come back on it later on. We usually get a lot of questions about this, but effectively, if you multiply your 2 points together from each of your possible things that control the algorithm, total possible score is 8192, which sounds ridiculous, but all these things stack up. They all matter. And that's why you have to really worry and be very responsible on Amazon, because as much as you might want to just focus on selling product, this algorithm and this machine behind it all will do far more sales work up and sales work down in terms of opportunity and damage than anything else you do. And where we want to complicate this further for you from an understanding point is that the variables aren't fixed. They're allocated points relating to importance. So the big one that stands out is your customer service is a 1.96, your SKU feedback is a 1.9, and all these other ones are perhaps a bit less. And those points come together to then start to shape what your overall score is. And the total possible score again is 8192, and what you get out of that is a collection of these points multiplied together. Don't worry too much about what they are. The thing to remember is they all matter and they all stack up. And then one day, we make a few mistakes and let priorities slip when we're selling on Amazon. And Amazon are so very good at this, which makes them terrifying to people who sell product on Amazon. And that's really Amazon's A9 algorithm defense mechanism kicks in, or we call this the red zone. all of your messages start to go red. And Amazon focus in really heavily on these areas in terms of relevance: your price, your 90-day sales history, and your account health, and your number of days out of stock is a big one too. And if you're failing in any of these areas, Amazon use the algorithm to reduce your appearance in search. So all of this is about a warning and about looking ahead. And on Amazon, you don't own your digital space. You pay rent, you're one of many, and you live within the rules. But if you do that, the opportunity is enormous. The largest client we work with, who's based in Ireland, in the north, just about, they're based in Newry. They do 9 million a year on Amazon, and they have been doing that for a long time. In the middle of COVID, they were up to 16 million a year on Amazon, and since then it has kind of reduced back, as a lot of us have seen. But there's nothing stopping any of you from reaching that point, and we have hands-on experience of that brand. They aren't doing anything hugely different from what any e-commerce retailer in Ireland is doing. But what they have is they have an Amazon business that knows how to move, and thankfully we've worked with them for a long time. And what we want to say to here is, learn to play the game, and you can unlock 40% of e-commerce sales around the world. That 40% is Amazon's number. Between the UK and US, or EU and US overall, Amazon has about 38% of e-commerce sales that is publicly known. That's debated a lot, but we believe the evidence is very strong. If you look at their P&L, you can see how much revenue comes through that. So what we want to do today is explain to you that we can unlock this 40% of e-commerce sales, and you can achieve that within your business. It's just about the right approach and how to go into this. And this is about, from our point of view, Amazon.ie, but it's about Amazon.co.uk as well. There's a lot of revenue sitting on the table there, and it's within your grasp. And I want to reinforce this sort of e-commerce structural piece. D2C websites, search engines, and marketplaces, they all act differently, and you need a different strategy for each, but they're all there to help your e-commerce revenue. And really, it's the ability to think about them differently that I think starts to open them up. And the big question that we're getting from a lot of Irish companies that we speak to is, what can I do now to prepare to sell on Amazon.ie? And the big ones at this stage are your logistics and how you're going to deliver. That's of fundamental importance. I would start speaking to your account managers about a better rate, for your business overall, and start to plan as to what you think you can do. Is there anywhere that's cut off, etc., etc. If you're not shipping to the north, I'm not sure if Amazon.ie are going to allow people to turn the north off. I genuinely don't know that. In the UK, for example, you have to ship to all the islands because of some postal legal thing. You can't turn areas off, which is a bit of a problem, but that's why we're saying to look at that from day one. Your catalog is going to be a lot of work. If you're able to extract your catalog from your website into an Excel, that is the start of it. And if you're able to do that, I would start preparing that. And the other one's tax. I would look ahead on this and start to speak to accountants, because you don't want to be delayed by these things whenever everything starts moving then in January, February, March, or whenever it's going to be. Now, we're here to help as well. Any questions, contact the guys at Magico in terms of ask them, and they can put it through to us. We're trying to run this together to make sure that we're being as supportive as we can, and we want everybody to sort of see the opportunity, and we don't want to keep any doors closed. So any questions, direct to them, and we can then turn that into hopefully answers for everybody. And that's really it on that front. That was the kind of detail. And thanks for your time today. I'm on LinkedIn. All things Amazon.ie is there. It redirects to allthingsamazon.co.uk, and that's our website for the moment. You can email me. You can ask the guys any questions, and what we'll do is try and build this with you over time so that you're well led in what's going on with Amazon.ie. And that's really it. And I think what we probably do is I'll stop the sharing, and we'll maybe jump back to some questions. And you can ask anything here, and ultimately our job today is to give you a clear path, and we'll probably then follow up with some guidance notes and some of our milestones looking ahead that we can help kind of support you on that journey. So I'll stop sharing here, and we'll maybe flip to hosting and back with you guys, and we can open the floor for some questions.
Yeah, if anybody does have any questions, if you just want to unmute yourself there and you can ask the question.
Thanks, Paul. That was really really informative. I'm sure it was informed a lot of our retailers who may not be really engaging with it, might not be sure where to start. Have we any questions from the members who've joined the webinar here? Any retailers on the webinar? All very quiet. Surprise.
William in Pharma Direct.
Well,
Hi, William.
Can you hear me, guys? Just one thing. We previously had a call with Amazon probably about a year ago to look at selling on it. And one concern we had, and maybe it's more a question for Ursula and Orla, is I'd be concerned just about having to set up and use a second platform in terms of all our orders. Is there any way of integrating, let's say, if someone is placing orders through Amazon.ie or whatever site, that could show on the AB Commerce end so that everything is in one place, rather than every day when the team come in having to log into Amazon and then having to log into AB Commerce?
Sure. I suppose the first step today is to start sharing some information and kind of gauging the appetite from retailers for this additional channel, and based on that, we'd definitely be open to conversations with Paul around the scope of that. Both Paul Walsh and Paul Montville and the development team in AB Commerce, in terms of how we can enhance the technology to support that, if that is something that we feel is a viable option. Yeah. So we haven't a solution for it at the moment, but it's something we are discussing or looking at, William.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Thankfully, the physical integration of orders is the easier part of the kind of process. The harder thing to do is start to integrate your sales piece. So hopefully that is something that can be progressed, and we can have answers for that one sooner rather than later. But yeah, very, very valid question.
Hello.
Hello, Susan.
Hello. Susan, yeah, Susan Kyle here. This is just a fundamental question, not really on logistics now at the moment. This is very, very fundamental. If you have a large catalogue, would you suggest, beginning very small, say if you 3,000-4,000 products and you want to sell on Amazon, but you know that the logistics of providing stock control for so many products would be, it would need to be implemented incrementally. What do you begin small? Do you begin with 10? Do you begin with 20? What would you suggest in that way, or how you grow it, or where do you begin? At what point do you begin?
No, that's a really good question. Again, we'll have the stock/orders thing at the front there, and we'll take that away and give that a good bit of thought on everybody's behalf. But there's a few things going to happen on Amazon.ie as it opens up, and I would look at it in the UK separately on this one. In the UK, what you might want to do on Amazon.co.uk is move slowly and get used to it. The thing that's going to happen on Amazon.ie is you're going to have 50 million products added in the first year, and that's coming from Irish retailers, UK retailers, and further afield. And strategically, thinking of your revenue and your top line, and I would suggest to you to get everything onto Amazon.ie from day one, because what that allows for is you have whatever category you're in, you're able to get the early advance on that, and you're hopefully then starting to collect the first orders. And the first orders link back into the algorithm piece and start to really lift your future chance of revenue. So like my suggestion for everybody here would be full catalog from day one. And if you have barriers around stock, pricing, etc., there's you could put somebody on that full time to manage it until there's an integrated solution. But I would do that ahead of missing the opportunity of getting your real sort of grab here, because I think by 12 months in, Amazon headquarters in Europe will be pushing a lot of UK sellers to create an Ireland offering, and by the time that happens, then competition's way up. And I think what we need to secure here is Irish businesses first on Amazon.ie to make sure that the Amazon.ie announcement is a positive for Irish retail rather than taking money away from Irish retail and giving it to UK retail. And that's just speaking very, very sort of strategically, and that drives us in a lot of what we're thinking here, because there's 80 lorries a night of product that comes from Amazon UK into Ireland overall, and most of those products are available from Irish retailers. So we have an ecosystem problem there that we have to think about from an economic point of view. But thinking in your scenario, I would go full catalog from day one, even if that is the difficult road.
Well, thanks very much. That's great advice. Thank you.
Is any other sort of fundamental questions? This is a lot for people, and we try and answer it in the presentation, and the presentation leans a wee bit heavy into algorithm. But is there anything in terms of basics? There's no such thing as a bad question whenever something's very new to people. So we want to unlock those at this point in the journey so that Amazon's on the table for you, and we kind of take it from there. Question here from Donal that I've got here, and who pays for a return on Amazon? So Amazon force free returns. However, you can charge for shipping. So say someone buys something for €100 and you ship it to them, you're never going to get that shipping back, which is problematic. You're going to have to still refund the €100, and you'll lose your shipping on that. Now you get back everything else, but you lose the 15%, and then you either get them to pay for their own return back to your headquarters, or you pay for that to get the product back. But bit of an issue around that in terms of costings. The UK has cheaper options than Ireland on that for whatever reason. I don't quite know why that has been that way over time, but I think the Irish sort of logistics operators, the parcel people, are going to have to set up a better returns process to make that a bit cheaper, and Amazon might force their hand on this. So most large retailers in Amazon, they integrate via a warehouse management system for the basics, and the easiest and safest way to do that is your inventory, your pricing, your orders, your stock all runs direct to Amazon. But I would highly recommend you don't use the services out there for product detail on the Amazon. There's a few reasons why. If you copy your website, I don't believe you're making a good thing happen there, because you're creating another place where the same digital content exists. And I would always worry about doing that in a place where the digital world and the algorithms can read that and start to compare. So I would suggest edited content. But what I would probably do is export your catalog and start to move some basic rules in. Do a VLOOKUP, take out this word, replace it with this word, reduce your character count or your word count from 16 words to 14, or increase them. And I would always be very sensitive around that. I'm coming from a sales background. That's where I've always been focused on Amazon. It may be less efficient, but I think we should always be cautious there. And I'll note that down as a bit of a takeaway of detail to try and think through ahead of people having to try and upload a 6,000 SKU catalog, and it all has to be unique product detail, because that's a lot of work. And the one thing that this should do early on is costly to you. Hopefully that answers that question. Anyone else? I can hear a microphone somewhere if anyone else has a question.
Hi, Paul. Alan from Caulfield Industrial in Galway.
Well, Alan,
Thank you very much for that. Two
No
quick questions.
Yep.
If we were to set up an Amazon account now, can we start filling in the catalog and adding products?
No. Amazon.ie is not accessible to anyone, even if you already have an account. And believe me, I've tried, because that was my protocol, was trying to see if we can bring all of our current clients on very quickly, and they haven't opened that. I asked an Amazon UK account manager, and she is not aware of that being possible. However, Amazon's global catalog, in terms of your flat file spreadsheet, it looks the same in almost every country. So what we can provide to everybody is the flat file from the UK, and or else the template of that for people to start to get ahead of this. And I've written that down as well. We can build that into some of the prep work that we're kind of trying to do to support.
Okay, so any work you would do now, you're only waiting for it to go live and then you upload it.
Yeah, in theory. Now they may also change a couple of columns around, but if you have the columns ready, as we all know from flat file uploads, you know, if you have the columns ready, it's a copy and paste job, and then that's you up. And that would be my recommendation for the content work that's done now. I think that would be a smart move at this time of the year, because I think the problem is anyone who has a winter peak is going to basically put all this work to the side October, November, December, because they're going to be focused on their Web Ireland offering. So I would say maybe about thinking ahead on that now, but it's a good question. You said you had a second question, Alan?
Yes, one other question. So if you say load 100 products to the Amazon site to sell, but you don't have 10 of them in stock, but they're listed out as out of stock, is that going to affect your rating then through the algorithm?
Good, really good question. Out of stocks in terms of as a problem is accepted much more than other things, and the reason for that is out of stocks, Amazon have realized over the years, is very, very natural. However, if you run out of that piece of stock for example 6 months, you're not going to put it back live and have your traction continue. Your traction is going to be halved, and you're going to have to put extra effort into rebuilding that. So you're going to dip like this, and even when you have the stock back, you're going to have to activate additional levers to get your run rate back to what it was before. But effectively, you could be running your catalog with 30% out of stock at any one time, and it doesn't affect your account overall. It will just affect your future revenues on that SKU.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
Any other questions, Alan? Anything else top of mind?
No, I think that was the two main things that popped to my head anyway there.
Okay, super.
Thank you.
I just have one there, Susan, again, sorry.
Go for it, Susan. That's what we're here for.
Just a concern over, it's not my field in this business. I sort of work on different areas. But I know there was always a concern over, or not really a concern, but obviously more logistics than anything else. When we buy from Amazon ourselves, there's duty and tax implications. And what way does that work in the other end when you're selling out? Does Amazon take care of that, or what way does that work?
So we'll use Amazon UK because we don't know yet for Amazon Ireland, because it's ultimately down to a conversation between Amazon and the regulator. And in America, it's moved on, and Amazon is having to collect sales tax in states on behalf of the government. In the UK, Amazon is not doing that. There is VAT calculation settings which allow for that, and there's softwares for it. However, most of the people we work with take their Amazon sales, they take the summary or the monthly report, and they take that number as their top line revenue and report their VAT from that. So based on the way we're looking ahead, if it's an Amazon UK question, that's the way that we see most people do it. If we're looking at Amazon Ireland, I imagine they're going to open it with you're still having to self-declare your revenue. So you take your revenue and you add that into your overall revenue and tax, and you just put that through the regular way. Thankfully, Amazon's reporting is quite strong. You can get a summary statement for the month. You can get order transactions line by line, and you can obviously account for that the correct way and put that all away. Does that answer your question, or was it a wee bit more open than that?
No, it's brilliant, and probably a wee bit over my head, but I know that the answer to the question will make more sense to the person that's going to listen to it afterwards. So thank you very much.
No, it's fine. You basically you tell your finance, whoever's doing the accounts, that we have a new income stream. The VAT and the tax on it is the same as any other euro that we sell, and you basically just make sure that they can see have full visibility over that. A lot of questions come around how to build that in, and the UK VAT rate is a 20% add-on, but you can't really think of it that way in Amazon, because if you're selling a product for £100, you need to work it back down, and the VAT comes out of that, so it's 1/6 or 16.66%. But there's standard. There's no tricks in that. Where you get into difficulty a wee bit is if you sell a product for £100, you pay your 16.66% to VAT and you pay your 15 to Amazon. And the two of them both eat into each other and both increase each other. So basically, for every pound that you transact, only £69 of that's going to hit the bank whenever VAT and Amazon's bit comes off. So that there's a rough number to keep in your head, but we can provide a financial breakdown too for that. But it is very standard. I wouldn't be hugely worried about how to go into that. Now, Amazon UK is a different beast for Irish retailers based in the south, because you're going to have to move into however you process UK VAT and sales tax. And I'm not sure whether that's going to be through an Irish entity or through an entity in the north or through an entity on the sort of UK mainland. I'm honestly not sure. That you'd need to probably pass that one to a a tax advisor.
Yeah, I think that was the key thing that we were just looking at and talking about. Kind of a base in the north. So it's just so wide and so open, so many open questions. But that's brilliant. Thank you very much.
No, you're welcome. The north question comes into it a lot, and despite the fact that Brexit's been incredibly difficult to understand, the north effectively can ship into the south and into the UK without any barriers. Now, we're in the north, and I have a northern-based company, so I can do that. If you're based in the south, I believe you would have to then have a business in the north, not just an address, to be able to do that. But that then is beyond where my understanding on this goes. And it's a case of, if you have to register in the north, then so be it. But then the implication that comes, because you then have technically a UK registered entity, and that's for other specialists to be aware of. But these are the questions, and this is the stuff that people are better hitting head on now, so that whenever this go live date starts in January, February, March, whenever it's going to be, all that's done and you're ready just to start selling product, basically.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you.
No worries. Any other questions there? I don't want to.
Paul, I just have a question. Just when you were talking about the strategy, and we were looking at the figures there earlier on, and we were talking about the margin and the margin that's required. And I suppose I'm just thinking about the quite wide depth of retailers and the various different verticals that we have of retailers on AB Commerce. So we've lots in the hardware space, lots in the pharmacy space, lots in sports and fashion and apparel. And obviously all those different verticals will have different, margins on their product. Is there any specific vertical there that you see performing better than others, or that would be most suited to this type of a strategy?
It's a good question. So you've Ireland and UK coming into play here. Home and decor is big, and home and decor is a place that we know very well. We have a fortification of clients in the home and decor space. It's good. Electronics, you start to get into a mixture of things, big brands, competition, and compliance/complexity around plugs, around the regulation, etc. It's still a great category, but a wee bit more difficult. Fashion is a different vertical. Fashion is a wee bit harder to play by the normal rules in, because Amazon want their fashion vertical controlled differently. And then when you might move out into outdoor and pharma, etc., you're going to have a lot of compliance on the pharma side and health and beauty and all of that under one, because basically anything that can be used on the body or comes into the body has regulation needs for Amazon that they have to be extra zoned in on. But from our experience, there's a huge gap there, and we saw a beauty seller recently come on who they went above every line that I've ever seen on a growth trajectory for less cost than I presumed they would need to go in on. So, well, I think back to I have two brands on Amazon as a skin in the game piece, and I had to work a lot harder than they had to work to get the €500 a day. So they came in and they jumped straight in. But those are the big ones, and the wider a category it is in general in the e-commerce market, the better. But the way I would look at this is, if you're doing €3 million in a certain area already, the market's there, and it's probably going to transfer to Amazon. And to come back to Susan's question and when to go, I would go early. And, you know, the suggestion we have given some of our complex clients is, and they're based in the north, and they've always wanted Amazon.ie, is go in really heavy with a catalog to put almost an embargo in, so that other people competitively will struggle to get past you, because they are certainly going to do that ahead. They're going to be advised by somebody much like myself, and they're going to probably be pushing to do that, and you don't want to be on the other side of the blockade they put in. So I would go early. If you already have revenue, I would have faith that that's going to come. But there's great opportunity so long as you already see revenue, and I wouldn't be staying away from areas. There's just some that are more complex.
Very good, great. And the only other question I had, we have a lot of retailers with various degrees of mixes of continuity stock versus seasonal stock. And obviously you commented earlier in relation to the SKU and the out of stock and the impact on revenue for that SKU. So in terms of strategic approach, is it better to kind of lead with a continuity stock, or do you see those performing better in terms of revenue return versus your seasonal stock? Or have you any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so you know, everything's about building that momentum up, and continuity has always been a thing for Amazon, and they've had to be somewhat flexible on that. But by far your biggest opportunity, if you were only going to invest a certain amount of cash, and that was leading the question, by far your best ones are the ones that are never going to run out of stock and aren't seasonal. However, it's not to say that those aren't going to get revenue for you, your seasonal ones and your ones that are inconsistent. It's just that if we're going for a land grab here and trying to get revenue stacked early to help pay for this project, then you want to go for the ones that are a constant, because there's a bit less work, and Amazon will naturally allow for a greater increase of sale on them over time.
Good, great, thank you.
Okay.
Excellent. So is there any final questions there from any of our retailers?
No, that's perfect.
Yeah.
Thanks for the opportunity to engage with everyone. We have some notes. Both ourselves and Magico have a couple of sort of pieces to take away from this and go, how do we answer that question and how do we support? And we'll speak amongst ourselves, and then maybe message everybody with a follow-up and with kind of future guidance. But listen, huge opportunity there, and fingers crossed everybody can take and get a lot from it. And thank you again for the time and the chance to speak.
And thank you, Paul. Like, it has been hugely informative presentation today, so it's been great. As I said, we'll provide a recording to everyone that has joined and registered for the webinar. And I suppose next steps really is for as
Your mute's on, Orla, there, sorry.
Sorry, guys. Sorry. What I was saying there was a big thank you to you, Paul. It's been a really informative session. I know it's gone on a little while, but I think it's just the information shared and the questions. It's really thank you for your time and your insights. We will provide a recording of the session to everyone that's registered and that joined here today. And as Paul said, the conversation will continue between AB Commerce and Paul himself, but we're very keen to get your feedback from the presentation today, how much you might be interested in it, maybe how much you're engaging on it. And, we want to kind of hear from you basically in terms of how we enhance the capabilities of the platform to align with any strategies that you might be developing. So, yeah, let us know your thoughts. And thanks again, Paul. Really appreciate it.
Thanks so much. Have a nice day. Take care.
Cheers, guys. Take care.
That's all.
Bye-bye.
Bye.